Welcome back, everybody, to Two Guys and a Stack of Comics. My name is Reed. Joining me, as always, is Mike. Mike, how you doing, sir?
Hey, Reed, let's talk about some comics.
Let's talk some comics. We did a video a couple days ago about the Ultimate Universe, the Incursion, Ultimate Spider-Man Incursion event that had Miles Morales kind of show up. Um, Got us thinking a little bit just about Miles' place in comic books, period, where the character's at, just the whole Spider-Man kind of dynamic that exists between him and Peter Parker. And I'll flat out say, just for transparency's sake, me and you, Mike, are both coming from we are Peter Parker fans who, while we don't dislike Miles, we will not claim to be fans of Miles Morales. So from the jump, transparency's sake, I think we can talk a little bit about that. But
I
I think
do, I do like him in the fact that he's a fresh approach to the character, and I
mhm.
know the kids love him, and I want more kids to love comics. So
No, I think
I
that's
do
the hard
think,
part with him is both our kids. You have a teenager, I have a teenager. Both
yeah,
our kids are huge Miles fans.
they love Miles. So what's wrong with Miles? Nothing. But
I think mainly what we come from on this is I think Miles is kind of a symptom of a lot of the issues that Marvel and DC are making. And I'd say it's probably become more prevalent at Marvel than DC. We can talk a little bit about where we think DC has made this mistake too. So I think first and foremost, I think Miles is an okay character. Doesn't really strike me as a comic I would buy, but I think the problem he has is when you try to push Miles as Spider-Man. And what I mean, but look, titles are important. The heroes, the title, the hero name, whatever you want to call it, the secret identity, it's important. It is the character. And I think the thing is, fundamentally, when you say Spider Man, I think the uphill battle that Miles is fighting is one, in a comic book, if someone says, hey, Spider Man's here, it shouldn't be which one. I think that's kind of ridiculous.
yeah,
I think the other thing is, to me, it permanently puts Miles in the shadow of Peter Parker. In that, I think in a desire to make, hey, he can be this too, I think it one creates unnecessary antagonism between the two fan bases that doesn't need to be there. And two, it puts Miles that you're like, oh, it's that Spider-Man. And I think he doesn't need to be there as a character. And I'll kind of use an example of my own of two characters I really love. Wolverine is my favorite Marvel character. I actually really like X-23. I think Laura Kinney's a great character. I think she's a great dynamic that's been added into the X-Men universe. Maybe you don't want to call her X-23, but when they try to call Laura Wolverine, it's like, get out of here. Wolverine is Logan. And you can give her a Logan inspired suit. I thought it was okay when Wolverine died and she tried to be the new Wolverine. But once he came back, it was like, look, junior partner, the real one is back. Go get your own identity. And I like X-23. I regularly buy comics that Laura Kinney's in. But I think anytime you try to have where even if it's a character you like, you try to make them the same title character. Mike, I think you can probably relate to this a lot. And I think probably two of your favorite three characters are Barry Allen and Wally West.
yeah.
But I know for you, the Flash has kind of been that same way.
Oh yeah, I mean, Kid Flash was an important part of comics history and everything, right? And he played the sidekick role, and he was always the sidekick until the Flash was killed, and then he became the main Flash. I think the Miles and Spider-Man thing is it started off, I imagine, probably about 15 years ago. Somebody came up with this great idea, and they were like, "This is the future of Spider-Man. It's
Yeah,
gonna
in
be Miles."
2011, they created Miles for
Yeah,
the Ultimate
it's
Universe.
good. Yeah, it's got to be Miles, and everybody loved him, and you got on board with him. But then when you put him in a but he had his own universe back then. He was his own Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
He's younger, and everybody loves a young Spider-Man because that's built into the character. These comics are inherently designed to have one protagonist. Yes, there are ensemble casts, but usually they work with the buddy system, right? There's the apprentice and then there's the master, and like Wally West followed Flash, and Robin followed Batman, and Spider-Man never had a sidekick.
Mm-hmm.
But now he's got this sidekick, but he's also his own Spider-Man.
No, they're
And
very clear. They do not want Miles to be the sidekick to Peter,
right,
despite wanting him to be in
and
that realm.
it just doesn't work when you have two protagonists really competing for the same every month. It really needs to be more condensed. Like you could do a crossover, you could come in, but you usually would have this dynamic where there's the older hero and the apprentice. And that's not really the case with Miles. So what you end up when you have more than one superpower with same powers in one comic, it ends up kind of diluting the story, and you have to pick sides. You don't know who you like better. It's kind of it doesn't really work as well.
And they
Fighter,
have had them have their own comics. I think the issue with Miles is why I think there's antagonism. I think the main thing we're trying to address, why is there antagonism from Peter fans toward Miles? And look, some of that comes from the corners of the internet that just don't like the Eva Spider-Man that looks different. But I do think the reason that most Peter fans, why you don't. One, Miles' arrival in a universe for the Ultimate Universe was, hey, Peter had to die for Miles, which not going to be a fan of that story. So I'll be honest. I read the Ultimate Universe, loved it. I think they handled Peter's death great. I wasn't exactly thrilled to see Miles when he showed up, not because he was Miles, not because he looked different. You killed Peter Parker. I'm not a fan of you killing Peter Parker. Just
yeah,
flat out, that's a huge thing to get over. But I think in the Ultimate Universe originally, it worked. Peter had his story. Peter's story wrapped. Peter sacrificed his life. You had this kid who's going to carry on the mantle. It actually makes sense in the same vein that Wally became the Flash
right.
after Barry died in Infinite or Crisis on Infinite Earths, right? And it felt like, hey, it's a passing of the torch. It's a legacy, all that. Once Miles's universe ended and he got moved over into the main continuity, I think that is where the Miles issue has become more of a problem for Spider-Man fans, for Peter fans, and that there is this push that hey, they're both Spider-Man. And look, we've had characters. But like Green Lantern doesn't count. That's a Green Lantern Corps. There's a million
Yeah.
Green Lanterns, right? Every time they try to do two people in the role at the same time, and we've seen characters that people love. They tried to do a while where Dick Grayson was Batman and Bruce Wayne was Batman at the same time. Didn't work. Eventually, they realized, hey, we got to make Dick Nightwing again, and Bruce has got to be Batman. They've had to have when Bucky was Captain America and Steve was Captain America. They tried to do dual Captain Americas. Didn't work. I think we're seeing right now with Sam Wilson. He can't keep a title as Captain America while Steve is still alive and be Captain America as well. And so I think if they really wanted to have Miles work, you do need to, whatever universe he's in, Peter needs to be off the board. Because what they've done, unlike Bruce Wayne,
I would agree with that.
Peter has not been allowed to mature anymore. And that's the reason that the mentor mentee dynamic worked with some of these other heroes. Batman was always clearly older than Robin. He was a father figure, older brother figure at worst, depending on the relationship. And Bruce grew. So when Dick went from being the teen wonder Robin to Nightwing, Bruce went from being probably mid 20s to Bruce is now clearly an older guy. Same thing with Barry, same thing with Wally. Peter, they've actually taken where he was progressing and they've regressed him and we're getting rid of the marriage. He's again a slacker. He's again struggling like he's a college student. And so I think what's happened is at the same time that we've seen Peter go from a character who was always growing to now he's back to like point C where he's never moving, they're trying to push another character, Spider-Man. And I think overall that just creates a ton of antagonism because you don't want Peter to be a role model. You don't want Peter to be the leader, but you also want this other kid who's got the title. And I think that's where the dynamic of two Spider-Mans is messed up almost more than any other one. And that the Flashes, even when there was two, Wally was clearly the mentee to Barry. And they won't do that with Miles, and then you want to like reduce Peter's storyline. And so I think that's where a ton of the frustration comes in is it's Peter Parker fans who are also mad at what you're doing to Peter Parker, and then you keep pushing this Miles character.
Yeah, I really feel that, like you said, if you're gonna have two Spider-Men, they should probably not be in the same book. You know, you have
Or the
your
same
Miles
universe.
fans, you get,
I think the same universe is more of the issue because they've
but
kept it.
that's the whole confusing thing for me because he had his own universe and now he's in this universe. And I'm
Then we
having
break it, we put Peter into his own universe again in the Ultimate Universe, and now
and now Miles comes into that
I,
one.
I think Miles bouncing between the universes could work because Miles is one of the only two survivors of the Ultimate Universe. I get that. But again, it's like, because I'll hear people go, well, why do you complain that Miles is following Peter everywhere? I think the issue is for what, so 62 to 2011, so dang near, 50 something years, Peter was the one and only Spider Man. And you had other ones pop up like Spider Man 2099, but that's a future Spider Man clearly on his own, meant to be a
Yeah.
story after Peter Parker is dead. I think, unlike characters like The Flash, where look,
Oh
you
wait,
could say,
do we have
hey,
to go into the Clone Sagas?
no, but even that, people didn't love Ben Riley being Spider Man at the same
Right.
time as Peter. Again,
Right.
you have Ben Riley fans,
Yeah.
but no one, you didn't do, oh, they're both Spider Man at the same time. Ben became the main Spider Man that tried to get rid of Peter, didn't
Right.
work. Ben got benched, put Peter back in. And I think that's the thing that's huge is when they replaced Barry Allen and made Wally West the Flash, you can argue that Wally West was equally as popular, if not more popular than Barry. Barry's title wasn't doing the greatest. When they have replaced other characters, I love Steve Rogers. Steve Rogers has never had the best absolute number one selling comic book in the last 30 years. Captain America's sales are good. The problem with trying to replace Peter, you are taking the most popular superhero that exists. And I hate saying that as a Batman fan, but I don't even think it's necessarily close.
Yeah.
Peter is far and away the most popular superhero character. And so what's so weird is like he's the most important superhero, but they don't seem to want to do anything with him. And they keep trying to add, like, it's just like him, but different. It's just like him, but different. And now you have this weird Spider Verse thing of 65 different Spider-Men. And they're all so prominent because it's not just Miles, too. It's the fact that we've had Gwen in the
I had a
main
lot of
universe.
fun at that movie though.
So the Spider-Verse movies, I think we can get to another piece here.
Yeah,
And
I
again,
had a
this
lot
is,
of fun watching that movie.
I know you and Jax love those. And look, my kid loves those two Spider-Verse movies. I've always had a major issue with those. Not
I
because of
know
the
you
Miles
did.
piece of the story. Miles is
I know
fine.
you did.
Um, I hate how they presented Peter Parker in those.
I
And
know
it
you
like
did.
we
I know
get the
you did.
slacker, loser, divorced, out of shape. I'm a horrible mentor, Peter, in the first movie. Then we get the second one where he's in freaking pink bunny slippers and
The pink slippers are classic,
dragging
dude.
dragging his toddler daughter into all kinds of things, and then he betrayed Miles. And I've hated what we've seen. Now, the fact that they had Peter Parker in the Spider Verse movie being like, "Just let your dad die, kid," is just no, it's not Peter
That
Parker. And
that
so I've
was
had
weird. That was
issues.
weird.
I'm fine with Miles's part in those stories. I think the other thing, the video games, another huge issue I had, and again, this is the unnecessary antagonism. You got to play as Miles and beat up Peter when he's symbiote influenced in the other game. And again, yes, it's a video game. You play as both. But again, it's always, to me at least, when they put these two together, Peter gets the short end of the stick when these two team up. And
I think
that doesn't
I
happen with other characters when they team up.
I think it's weird how they go back and forth with the aging of Peter. And I really feel that Marvel feels that Miles is the future of Spider-Man. And so they are pushing him in this way, and that's why you're going to see him that way. Um, uh, but to have a younger Peter should always be the older one, and it should always be a mentor mentee kind of thing when they meet. And that's the way that kind of works. And if you're trying to push one over the other, historically speaking, the mentor has to die
Well, no, and I think that the other thing they've done, and this is, I
in
think you
order
can
for it to
see,
work right.
one, I think you can see a beautiful balance of how this can get done with, like, again, I would say, well, it's a father son relationship typically. Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson has been one of the best relationships, I think, in comic books in terms of a mentor mentee, sidekick, leader kind of thing. In that, what they've done a great job of is there's a lot of great comic books too where Bruce Wayne looks and goes, hey man, I may not have survived if it wasn't for Dick Grayson. Dick Grayson
Yeah.
has taught me how to be a better hero. He made me responsible. He made me understand that I don't have to be as dark all the time. Or you'll have that Bruce truly looks at Dick Grayson and goes like, "Man, I respect the heck out of the fact that he can be happy and do this and I can't do that." Right? And
Yeah.
at the same time, they'll have Dick Grayson have reverence of like, "That's Batman." Right?
Yeah.
You don't have comics where Bruce is like looking at Dick Grayson or meeting Damian Wayne, and Damian Wayne's like, "Bruce, can you believe how amazing he is? He's just a better Batman than you could be." It just sound, and that's the problem with Miles is the dialogue in that book they had this week. It's a fanboy thing of like Miles is incredible. Don't these other spider people suck? He just makes it look so much better. And again, it's the main writer of the Miles title. That's probably why that's in there. But if you're a Peter Parker fan, again, it's like, okay, so not only is
It's
Miles going to
crushing,
come
right?
into Peter's story, but we got to spend 5 pages talking about how amazing Miles is. And they just need to, like you said, I think the regression of Peter has probably been the worst thing for Miles too. And that I think one of the reason Miles does get a lot of crap from Peter Parker fans not only did okay, his Peter has to die for Miles to be Spider-Man initially. Then you bring him over into the main universe. Now he's following him here. And typically when these two team up, the light doesn't shine real well on Peter. And I think what the one thing that summed up my frustration with this entire Spider-Verse thing they've done about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, there was a Spider-Man comic that came out just called Spider-Man with Peter Parker as the main character in it. And it was supposed to be the end of the Spider-Verse sort of thing. And so they brought all the multiple Spider-Mans in. And the whole thing was about who's the chosen one of the Spider-Mans.
Oh
And
no.
you would think it's got to be Peter. But as soon as they read the comic and they're doing chosen one, like, there's no way they'll make it Peter. They won't give him that. Despite the fact that he's the reason the whole brand exists, despite the fact that he is Spider-Man, he is the most popular character. And of course, 5 or 6 issues in, it's not Peter. I think it was Silk or some other character. And it's like, that's the part I think that's missing is look, I am fine with there being a younger Spider-Man, a sidekick-ish Spider-Man, or if you don't want to make him a sidekick, just another guy in the role. But give Peter some freaking respect. Make him the senior. When you want to push down Peter as slacker, loser guy who just professionally gets beaten up all the time in his comic book, and then you want to push another character, I think that's where so much of the frustration comes from.
I think that is the root of all your ire is that Peter gets no respect, man.
No,
Peter doesn't get more respect.
it would be, and again, like I don't like if they've done this at times with. I like the Bat Family characters. But it got to a point with the Bat Family where, like, I don't even want them around anymore because every time Bruce shows up in their comics, it's to make Bruce look like a jerk.
Yeah.
Bruce shows up and it's like, oh, Bruce is lecturing us again. And it's like, they'll have comic runs occasionally where they make like all the Robins and Batgirl be like, oh, he pushed us into this life. It's like, then quit. Like, you don't want to do like what
I
they always do
remember
this thing
that.
where they
Yeah.
like want to dunk on Bruce of like, oh, he's this and this. It's like, okay, well, you don't mind the $1 million costumes and equipment and all the crap that you have from him. And he's not forcing you to do it anymore. So if you really have this big of an issue, don't wear the symbol. Don't be a superhero. Don't use the multi-billionaire tech stuff. But they won't do that because it basically is just a, hey, we want to complain about Bruce. And I think that's the same thing that happens with Miles is I don't know how big of a part of Miles' ongoing comics. I'm imagining Peter's not a very relevant piece to it at all. But whenever they show up together, it's like, which one's going to get to look cooler? Miles. Which one's going to be acting more mature? Miles. And it's just that dynamic doesn't work. But let us know. What do you guys think down below? If you're a Miles Morales fan, we would really want to hear from you guys on this.
Come
And
on,
that
Miles fans.
how many do
Comment
you think
below.
the
Come on.
complaints or the issues that we have are completely unfounded? If you're thinking we got a blind spot, something we're not seeing correctly, let us know. Absolutely open to hearing that. We will never pretend to be the 100% experts on this. I think we just kind of want to talk about it and just like where we come from when Miles shows up and why there's negativity with it. But let us know. And if you're a Peter fan, do you feel the same way that we do, where it's more about, hey man, just put some respect on Peter Parker's name? But as always, folks, let us know what you think down below. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you. We'll catch you in our next video.
Thanks, everybody.